understanding a shift or recognizing a shift. The shift in the market often creeps up on us unless you're actually paying attention. So here I'm going to give you what a shift is, and we're going to talk about how to recognize it far in advance so that you can prepare for it. Now, when you're thinking about a real estate shift, what you have to think about is first a baseline. And that baseline is the average market or what's happening in the market. Now, we all know that typically the baseline kind of moves a little bit like this, right? But for the purposes of this video, we're going to utilize just a flat line. Let's pretend prices never change, just for a moment, right? In a shift, there are two types of shifts. See, people only use the word shift when the market is failing or crashing or going down, but that's not true. It's also a shift when the market is picking up, right? And that's when things change. So we've got this shift when the market starts to do this, right? And then we've got this shift when the market starts to do this. Now, there are different situations here. In this situation, the market, we say, is good. But as many of you have seen, in 2020 and 2021, 2022, the market really moved fast and it moved up in this trajectory and it was a good market. Problem was that it is cyclical and it created what we are considering to be in 2023 a recession. Now, in this situation, we call this a bad market because prices are going down, markets are crashing, stock values going down, 401ks look bad, so forth and so on. Now, let's talk about something here. During this market, there are ways to be ready and to prepare. Look, in a good market, we can recognize it simply by prices going up, lack of inventory, buyer demand. In what we would say a bad market or a decreasing market, we would find price drops. So here they go up, here they drop. We would find more inventory. We would find a lack of buyers. Okay, let's take 2008 for example. 2005, 6, and 7 were superior markets and the market was booming. It was all this, right? And then in 2008, the market took a crash. So the trajectory didn't look like this, it looked like that, right? And what happened? We had a ton of inventory hit the market because everybody who foreclosed, the banks were back on the market, every short sale that was happening, people who couldn't afford their properties any longer, people who didn't want to pay for their properties because they lost 90% of their value, right? 80, 90% of their value. This is what happened. You had a lot more inventory hitting the market. And then you had a tremendous lack of buyers. Why was there a lack of buyers? Well, people just lost their home. They wouldn't qualify for another mortgage immediately, especially if they had a foreclosure or they had a bank takeaway or they had a trade-in with the bank where they voluntarily gave up their home, still a foreclosure, right? Or they had a short sale, any of that stuff. And so there was a serious lack of qualified buyers. And what was coming in, we'll talk about in a second. Prices dropped like crazy. Now let's fast forward to 2020, when COVID affected our market. And COVID affected our market similar to a world war. And what happened was that our market reacted to this world virus by really taking off. And so prices were going up 20, 30% in some markets year over year. Lack of inventory because buyers were going nuts. Interest rates were 2.3%, 2.5%. It was like the bank was paying you to buy property, right? And so we had tremendous buyer demand. We had a serious lack of inventory because there just wasn't enough homes to sell. And not everyone is selling their homes. And then people started to think, well, if I sold my home and made all this profit, where in the world would I go? Because prices were booming so much. But like any market, there's this side that begins to happen. And this side that begins to happen. And it starts to return to the baseline. Now, in a lot of markets, people will say, well, we're not in a good market anymore. We've hit peak and now we're in a bad market, but that's not necessarily true. Just because the market is correcting itself doesn't mean that it's a bad market. It means that we're going back to baseline growth. Same thing here. Market goes crazy, drops, gets crazy and nasty. We'll call this side a good market. But that's not necessarily true. Yes, it's better than a failing market, but it's returning to a baseline place. We're going back to what we would call normality, right? Or a normal market. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a shift. Next, we're going to talk about how to recognize these shifts and how to prepare for these shifts and how to always win in these shifts.